Today I have with me Captain Robert Hodge from the infectious diseases portion of the military. Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here.
It's our understanding that you are leading the military arm regarding the research into the potential pandemic, correct?
That's correct.
What are your qualifications?
My primary field of research is forensic biology and pathology, but as part of counterintelligence, my role involves understanding and documenting hundreds of pathogens that are both naturally occurring and potentially weaponized, or as many have said, man-made.
Have you found any man-made proof in your research now?
Due to the nature of our research and the decidedly ongoing investigation, I can't divulge anything specifically. But even if I could, I would answer I wouldn't completely rule out any option. Even in naturally occurring illnesses, there can be genetic engineering factors in how things grow and evolve. For example, to make the perfect corn, you breed corn with better corn until you get the corn you want. Maybe it's resistant to parasites or weather conditions. Funny enough, that's exactly what happens in nature, survival of the fittest. So it's possible this could be naturally occurring, or someone could have a hand in its creation. What we would try to determine is if those markers prove that the human interaction was intentional, and that it's a little more difficult, but it's not impossible to determine those factors.
Is your goal completely surrounding how it was created?
No, our goal is to save lives, put frankly and simply. That means specifically deducing the pathogen, the causes, the metabolism, the pathology of the illness. If that results in a vaccine or a cure, those are obvious goals, but that could include avoidance techniques and survival options, which are just as important. I don't think we can afford to not turn over every stone in this fight.
That's a fair statement. Let's address some of the pushback from groups out there that say this is the precursor to martial law, that the military action has been done in secret and is a move to military action that will take away people's rights.
Any activity we've performed has been transparent. Let me make this clear. It's important to understand that we are not a controlling agency here. We work in direct support of civil defense, CDC, the Department of Infectious Diseases, the Surgeon General. There's literally a plethora of agencies that we report to that are civil side only. All that we've brought to the table is our extensive and I'd say important information regarding pathogens we've encountered the world over in hopes to fight this illness and save lives. At no point would we, or more importantly, could we, take a leading role in combating this illness without direct federal approval, and that's literally never happened in the history of our country outside of the Civil War. So let me make this clear. The military has little or no chance of operating on U.S. soil. We have a ton of homeland-based organizations and police that are far better prepared and well-trained, or at least better trained than we are to handle these civil situations. And I think it's much more effective to have a local sheriff handle the situation than blanketed soldiers completely foreign to an area that they are working in. And even when we've dispatched by an agency to support their effort, we've had people walk right up to our base camp, and the most we've done is make sure that they are safe and they've been able to keep their distance from anyone that is sick until we could fully deduce how this illness is transmitted. The idea that there is some clandestine commitment to domestic targets is farcical at best. I mean, let's be honest. This is happening everywhere, and it's pretty clear that it isn't going to stay localized to a particular state or localized area. It's going to come out that very soon we'll see positive cases in China and Russia. There are definitely positive cases in Korea. And the last one we heard from Holland just isn't getting the media reports it should, because it's coming from every area, and more importantly in areas where people live, and those people require local resources to help them take action to counter any incursion. It's not going to be our job or our mission ever. There's just not enough soldiers in any army that can support 50 states and every border, which is why we have all the agencies we have, and they're doing an excellent job and to the best of their ability, and we should support them.
Your goal is simply support.
Correct. Just like the FBI shows up to a crime scene that's difficult to manage. They don't take over the scene. They support local law enforcement. We have that same role. We have a sweeping pathogen that it's important we stay ahead of. And right now we will require all hands on deck. And we're ready, willing, and able to support with our agency that effort. I can relay that as an agency that performs duties to protect domestic soil from foreign threats, we do have our own job, and we will continue to perform that duty. But I think we've learned from past terrorist activity that if we don't work intrinsically together, there's a good chance we'll drop the ball. And I don't think with current leadership that's going to be a concern.
Do you believe it's terrorist in nature?
Again, if we're going to be thorough, we have to consider every threat. But right now, I think the directive of any agency right now is not to determine blame so much as determine source. And what that entails is it's to get us to have preventative life-saving measures. Any other venture is a waste of important resources. You as a media, you may follow that path, but I can assure you that you won't get an answer until we've gotten to the bottom of all the other problems we face before we reach that goal. You don't want to ask yourself down the road if misdirection or taking people down a different road, if it results in deaths because people weren't prepared, you will eventually have to understand that eventuality, that there is some sort of moral obligation, and that at this time that has to be the priority of understanding how to get people ready for something. And then once the smoke is cleared, then we can deduce a true blame if there is any blame to be had. And that's where I think a lot of the confusion lies.
What is being done to prepare people?
There isn't much that isn't being done. Procedures for police, fire, EMS, civilians, as well as civilian support like radio, television, and media, they're all being drawn up, discussed with. It's one of the reasons I'm on your show. This is being forwarded to all the different agencies, so any information that you receive, we want to make sure that everybody receives that information and that it goes out to the public so that everybody is working together to make sure this system works of the best or effectively that it can. The shelter system, for instance, it was put in place by civil defense, and that's something they drew up decades ago, and it worked effectively, and that's why it works now, which is why they were implemented so quickly at the leading edge, and they're having exceptional results.
What about the claim that you've been seen taking bodies into encampments and doing research?
That's true. Why wouldn't we be doing that? Okay, look, I'm sorry that as a military mobile shelter system that we don't have the, I'm going to say, spiff and polish of a hospital or medical institution, but I think you'd rather us work on a potentially highly transmissible disease in a 40-year-old military tent that we plan to burn when we're done with it, surrounded by quarantined individuals, than say working in a local emergency room with an ER nurse that has 4 months of experience surrounded by people with the common cold. It's just logical. And I understand people's fear of what they're seeing, but this is something we've addressed multiple times, and it still seems to come up in these interviews. And before you start, let me be clear. People who are suffering from this illness are not coming along quietly. They fight, they bite, they are very uncooperative, and they're highly dangerous. We've had to train men with a great deal of skill and training on how to deal with this, and they are constantly learning. And we'd rather they not learn the hard way, but they are learning, so they can pass that along to anyone that wants that information, so that, especially the media, who can better interact with people down the road. It's why Civil Defense and CDC, as well as the Surgeon General, quickly stated that avoidance by the public is paramount. And we know what we're doing, and we're not trained to deal with it, and it's not pretty. I'll just say, once this is over, I'm pretty sure psychologists in this field are going to be seeing quite the uptick in patients, and that's a definite.
That's all the time we have. I'd like to thank Captain Hodge for coming on and wish you the best of luck in your endeavors and your service.
You're welcome, and rest assured we will keep it on this as long as we are capable.
Back to you at the news desk.